This is the 19th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, X-Zone Lures, Shoreline Boat and RV Repair, Spro, Gamakatsu, Big Bite Baits, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. Got a really cool behind the scenes show if you've been watching BTL or listening to BTL on all of the iPod platforms or podcast platforms. We've been talking with a lot of guests that we've had on over the past week about Kevin Van Dam's final regular season tournament, kind of what Kevin had meant to them, kind of how they saw him in the industry. And today we have a really cool behind the scenes look from some people at one of Kevin's iconic sponsor brands. You know, he's been with a number of brands for a long time. Recently, switched to Lose, I think 5 or 6 years ago from Quantum, but KVD synonymous with Strike King. And they have made a very concerted effort over at Rather Outdoors, Strike King at Lose, to do some really cool behind the scenes in-house content, dedicated a lot of time and money to it with the Kings of Bass TV YouTube channel that goes out not only on YouTube, but also I believe on like the Outdoor channel and a bunch of on-demand stuff, Mossy Oak Go app. So we have Brandon Owczarzak, who's going to join us for the first, and he's actually behind the scenes. He filmed all of Kevin's last season and has a really cool relationship with Kevin. So we'll talk to him. And then in the second half of the show, we will have Tom Brewbaker and Mark Copley on from Strike King Lose Rather Outdoors to talk a little bit about how much of an impact, just from a business side. I mean, we look at it from the on the water side, but what a lot of people in the industry and a lot of his fellow anglers marvel at is Kevin's ability behind the scenes to be as profitable and marketable, and how much time he spends that and still to compete on the water. So that's what we have coming up for today's show. I had a wild weekend. I was actually out in California for a couple days, and I got to tell you, I basically can't feel my body from like my neck down through my torso. I surfed the first time. Casey Shed from AFTCO, I posted a deal that I was at like this Huntington Beach pier. He's like, dude, that's like right in my neck of the woods. Do you want to surf? Without thinking about it, I said, yeah, let's surf. Oh my gosh, I have a lot of respect for it. There was one or two major tournaments that went down. There's a Toyota series that went down on Thousand Islands, kind of an up or down event there out of Messina. I think it took over 20 pounds a day to win that one. But there was also the college Bass National Championship. Let me make sure I get this right. The Strike King Bassmaster College Series National Championship at Pickwick Lake, presented by Bass Pro Shops. Try to put that on a trophy. And guys, I'm gonna have to dive into this later. It's definitely want to mention it now, but Tucker Smith won that event with his partner Hayden Marbut. I don't know if you're paying attention to this, but that's three. Let me see. I got to make this 3 high school championship titles, the 2021 college team of the year, and him and Logan Parks a couple years ago won the, as it was last year, the Bass Pro Shops US Open on Table Rock. This kid has a resume now. He hasn't been in a classic yet. This kid has a resume now that rivals Jordan Lee's as far as college fishing. And we've seen what Jordan Lee does. So who knows what we're looking at here with Tucker Smith and what his future brings, because the next step is the Opens, the Toyotas, FLW. I don't know where he's going to go, but he's going to go somewhere. He'll be someone to watch, and we'll probably do a show on that. All right, let's bring in Brandon. You in Michigan, Brandon?
I'm in Michigan, right up here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, hometown. Thanks for having me, Matt.
Thanks for jumping on. I used to play junior hockey. We would travel to Grand Rapids in January to play the Grand Rapids Owls in the CSHL, and it's cold and blustery in Grand Rapids.
It's a lot warmer here right now, I can guarantee you, than in January.
Thanks for joining it. Hopefully, kind of in the preview, did I get all of that right? Kind of on how it is with Kevin, because your full-time job is filming for Rather Outdoors and Kings of Bass TV, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So we have a great team at Rather that we've assembled over the past few years. It just kind of started with Lee Reiber and I. So Lee's my superior, my boss, and the two of us came in, and from then on, we've added more people to the team. We started that Kings of Bass series, and we just have a great team. Everybody has different strengths and everything, and different things that they bring to the table, and we all work well together to produce all of our series that we do, whether it's Kings of Bass with Kevin or Pro Team Journal. We have our Kings of Bass Next Gen series that we do, which we've focused on some of our young and upcoming anglers like Jay Shakira, Dakota Ebear. So tons of different content across the board that we have been producing, creating, and that is our full-time job here for Rather. We're not contracted by Rather. We work full-time for Rather, which is pretty unique in this industry. You know, most companies contract out different media companies, different media outlets to create spots for them or create content. But with Rather, we have a full in-house production team. And that's something that Strike King has had for a long time. It's something that Strike King has always had as a major focus for their business. And they've had that for a long time, going back for, 25 plus seasons of Pro Team Journal that they've created before our time there.
You guys have had some stuff to cover over the last years, especially with Shakurit's win, and he had the 100 pounds of smallmouth, and then with what Ebears did last year on the BPT, which was absolutely crazy, and then especially with KVD's retirement announced this year. So when all this went down, you're the head guy. I'm sure you're sitting at the table, and Kevin says, "It's my last year." When did you hear about that? Was it a little surprise? And then how long did it take for you guys to get together and say, all right, we have this? I mean, this isn't cheap to have the Kings of Bass TV channel. And when you see it, and we'll play a little clip here in a second, but what was that like? Do you remember that moment when you sat down and you were like, okay, I'm in charge of documenting this. The greatest angler has ever cast a rod and reel and line in competitive bass fishing, and making this into a consumable package that is relevant, relates, and does it justice?
I'd first and foremost just say that it was an incredible honor to be asked to do it, to be asked to follow Kevin in his final season, everything that we know that he's accomplished and everything that he's done for the sport. When you look at just professional sports, there's not a lot of people that are like the image or the face of their sport, and Kevin is that for bass fishing. We look at other sports. I mean, it's Michael Jordan for basketball, or Tiger Woods for golf, Wayne Gretzky, for hockey. So Kevin is that for bass fishing. And so just to be asked to, produce this series following Kevin's final season was a great honor. But going back to when he made the announcement, before Kevin came to us letting us know the news, we were kind of brainstorming about what we were going to do with Kings of Bass this year, because we had done it for the last 2 seasons. We had followed multiple anglers, Mark Rose, Mark Zona, Greg Hackney, Kevin, of course. I feel like I'm missing somebody there, but Andy Montgomery,
bunch of guys on tour.
A bunch of guys on tour, and then we've done those next gen series that I've talked about, with Dakota, with Jay. We've done Cole Floyd, and we've done Pro Team Journals with numerous different pros. But so we were trying to think of a way to change it up this year, and Kevin came to us with his news that, hey guys, this is going to be my last season. You might want to do something with that. And
was that shocking in the house? Like, was that shocking around the office and to you? I mean, you've covered this, you've done it. Was it like, wait, what?
I think for a lot of people, it was shocking, like, wait, like you were still at the top of your game. I mean, you
Mhm.
go back to last year, Kevin finished, I don't know the exact number, but he was in the top 10 for Angler of the Year.
Mhm.
It was, I mean, maybe fifth, somewhere around there, really high. And this year's the same deal. I mean, I think he finished 11th.
Yep.
He's just got second place at Saginaw Bay. Could have, you know, looked like he was going to win that tournament, and Mother Nature, of course, threw him a curveball. But had the weather played any differently, I've got no doubt that he could have went out there and caught 20 pounds again off of his spot. It's just the way that the weather worked out, and that that happens in tournaments. That better than
Yep.
anybody. But so I think a lot of people were surprised because Kevin is still fishing at a very high level. But I have a very close relationship with Kevin. I live 40 minutes from him. He's the one who actually got me my job here at Rather.
Really?
Yeah. So
How did you first meet him?
I first met Kevin during the pandemic. So during 2020. And at the time, I was working for a smaller walleye brand called Samo, which is in the Rather Outdoors family. We were bought by Rather.
Uh-huh.
And so I was still working for Samo, managing their social media pages, producing content for them. And they needed somebody to get with Kevin to film some videos for his new rod series. But it's the middle of the pandemic. Like, nobody's traveling, everything's shut down. So they couldn't send somebody up here to Michigan to film with Kevin. And so they knew that I lived 40 minutes from him, and, asked me if I could do them a favor and help them out that way. So I went and filmed with Kevin, and we knocked out a bunch of videos for this was when he was coming out with his new Lose signature series of rods, and knocked out a bunch of videos with him. And just Kevin saw my work ethic and really enjoyed working with me. And basically told them, like, hey, what you guys have him doing right now, you need to move him over to, to be producing
awesome.
video content for
Yeah.
Lose and Strike King, because he's awesome. So I'm, very thankful to have had that experience with Kevin and been able to move up because of that. And we've always just had a close relationship ever since.
It's a right place, right time deal, but it's also you make your own luck. I mean, you could have done it, you could have knocked it out, and Kevin could have been like, all right, cool. But I mean, that's a perfect example of, I mean, you're in the industry anyways, but just taking advantage of the opportunities that present itself. Because I get people all the time. How do you get in the industry? How can you make a living in the industry? Do what you're good at, hard work, put your head down, and keep grinding and take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves. All right, so I kind of started with this. So did you guys sit down and have a brainstorm session? Like, we have to follow them. Like, how did it come up? The Last Ride series that you guys have been putting out over the past 5 months.
So Kevin first went to, of course he's going to go to the higher ups in the company. So he presented his plan, what he was planning to do to, Ken Eubanks, our CEO, to Rocky, our president. And they're the ones who decided, who initiated, like, that, hey, it's Kevin's final season. He's done so much for our brand, so much for the industry. We need to do something to celebrate him, on this final year. So it was their initiative to, hey, let's do Kings of Bass following him for his final year. We couldn't commit to go to all of the events, so we cherry picked out 5 events to go to. And it just so happened to work out. I mean, that final 2 events here in his home state, here in Michigan, like, just couldn't have asked for a better schedule, for him. But so they're the ones who decided that, and we just jumped right in.
All right, I'm going to run the first edit that you teased everyone with. It's the Kings of Bass season 4, The Last Ride with KVD, and this is your edit, 90% your video too. But if you're listening to this on any of the podcast platforms, it's worth going to the Kings of Bass YouTube channel and watching this, because this is top-notch cinematography, I guess is how you would say it, right, Brandon? But we'll run a little promo and then we'll talk about it, and then I want to get into it with you on what it was like over that last week at Saginaw Bay, because I think there's a side of Kevin that a lot of us got a little bit of glimpse of, mainly through some of the stuff that you've shot and some of the stuff that MLF had. That, dude, like, this guy has feelings and emotions, and it actually, like, his stuff we didn't know that he had. I'd love to get into that with you, but here's a let's see if we can get this here's just a little shot of the preview. All right, here we go.
I know you're going to get loud. 25-time Bassmaster winner. Recently announced this will be his last year of competitive fishing. From Kalamazoo, Michigan, KBD, Kevin Van Dam. The GOAT, the greatest of all time. A 7-time Bassmaster Angler of the Year, 4-time Classic Champion, and multi-time Major League Fishing Cup Champion. Well, let's give it up for Kevin Van Dam.
'Cause I can run, but I can't hide the feelings that I know I can't keep bottled up inside. And all I wanna know is, are you ready for the ride? What have I been waiting for? Oh, I can run, but I can't hide the feelings that I know.
Dude, that's a absolute banger. Like, so you knocked that out. Did you know, like, dude, this is, I mean, how many times have you watched that? Because I've watched it over the time it came out probably 15 times.
Oh yeah, quite a bit. I mean, when you're in the editing zone and the editing process, which, I mean, if you look behind me here, that's what I'm currently.
Are you at your house now? Do you do a lot of
Yeah.
like editing from your house? So that's where it all goes down right there. This is editing for the final one that's probably going to come out in the next several weeks. You don't want to.
Yeah. So in the next, we'll say in the next couple weeks, we'll have the final episode from Saginaw Bay. But yeah, this is what it looks like. But when you're editing a project, especially when I'm editing, I'm playing that over and over
because
again.
It's at the
so
beginning
many
of
times,
every single one.
Because like I'm watching it hundreds of times, you know, and going through and picking out pieces and putting pieces differently. It's funny. My wife no longer works from home, but when she used to work from home at the same time as I did, she would always be yelling at me, "Put your headphones on," because she'd get so annoyed of hearing the same song, you know.
How'd you find that song? That's like a perfect song for that.
We have a collection of different music sites that we
the royalty
have subscriptions
stuff,
to, so that we can, you know, use their music. And it's finding music is a task in itself. You know, that's usually a whole day deal of just trying to find music for an episode. You know, that's usually where I start off the editing process, is going onto our music sites and trying to find like every track for every segment that I have in mind, you know. So because I was there during the production, I know the storyline, I know what happened, I know in my head how things are going to be pieced together. So I kind of have a feel for the tone of the music.
So you're shooting it, you're seeing it go down, and you're going, dude, I want this style of music in the background, and this is a shot that I'm going to use. And then you get home and it's so much easier because you're cutting out all of the interpretation, because you're seeing it, feeling it, shooting it, and then putting it together so that all of us can look at a computer screen and get that same feeling that you did, that Kevin did, that captures that moment.
Absolutely.
All right, you ready to talk about this last event here?
Sure,
because that's what I really talked. You went into it. I feel like it's one of those moments, and you don't want to overstate it. Like, I remember I was at my grandma's house in 1999 when Gretzky was playing for the Rangers, and he was going out and he was waving with the jersey tucked in on the side. And I mean, I watched him since I started playing hockey in 1989, and I still get goosebumps thinking about it. I mean, it's just like it marks the end of an era. All year, you know, he's talking about it. You watch the Kings of Bass, he's like, holy cow, the season's flying by. He talked about it at Murray in the episode. But then you get to the final week. Like, this is it. Now, granted, he's going to be in Heavy Hitters and Red Crest next year. But as far as regular season events, was there like a moment of realization going into filming this last event on Saginaw Bay? Like, holy cow, it's actually here. This is the end of it.
I said it to him during practice. So I go out with him during practice, follow him for his whole first practice day. So the entire day, dark till dark, I'm out there with him, you know. And I said that to him during practice. I said, you know, this is the final time that we're doing this. You know, like, this is the final practice that we will be filming together. I was like, I'm sure maybe next year we'll be there, you know, for Red Crest or for Heavy Hitters. But in terms of, like your final season, this is it. And he had that realization, that this was his final practice. And it was really cool that day, that practice day. It was tough. It was really rough out. He had gone and covered so much of the bay looking for fish. It's some deeper water stuff out by the islands, looking for smallmouth, and wasn't finding them. He saw like one big one, like 1 5-pounder, but just wasn't finding them. And then we went largemouth fishing, and he caught a lot of largemouth, but nothing of much size. It's hard there to catch very good sized largemouth. He caught a couple 3-pounders, but then he went back to one stretch that he had saw when he went there for pre-practice, where it was just a rocky, just a rock pile, that he had found when the water was really clear. The water is much more chalky now. He made 2 casts in there, caught 2 smallmouth, and one of them was a good one. The other one was just, like a 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
But so left it, never really knew what was there, never really picked it apart to really know, but he really wasn't feeling that great about practice going in, like he didn't know what was there with those smallmouth, but didn't really find much and didn't catch much. And so I don't think he ever expected that there was as many there as there was, or that he could have as good of a tournament as he did. But a very cool silver lining of this story of practice is that same area that he caught those fish during that tournament is the same area that he filmed a spinnerbait video 30 years ago on the Saginaw Bay, and it's the last time that he was ever at the Saginaw Bay. Really? So it's like when his career started, he filmed this spinnerbait video out there on the Saginaw Bay and ended his career in the same area, finishing second place, almost winning the tournament. So it's just kind of a whole full circle deal, That was a really cool story. But
was he more reflective this year? Or was he just as competitive, wanting to win and be in contention and go out on top? Or what was it like kind of behind the scenes? Because when I went to every Elite Series and covered him behind the scenes, it was the mid 2000s, and it was like cutthroat KVD, like that 08 through 012, where it was, I'm going to go out and I'm going to crush everyone's hopes and dreams, and I want them to know on the final day that they have zero shot of winning. But kind of based on some of this stuff, it seems like he's a little bit more reflective in 2023.
In 2023, I would say the beginning of the season, so the first event, he was very reflective. He got very emotional. If you go back and watch our first episode from Toho, from the Kissimmee chain, he tears up at the beginning, and he tears up a couple times in that episode because he's very much realizing the moment that this is his final. This is his final season. This is his final tournament, final first tournament, and, final time fishing a tournament in Florida. And so he got very emotional in that first episode. But then I would say the rest of the season, as the season progressed, it was just classic Kevin, just dialed in, laser focused on the task, trying harder than ever before, really, really wanting to have a strong season, win an event, and just the killer that he is on the water. And it wasn't until this final episode at Saginaw where he gets very emotional again. And this would be the most emotional episode out of all of them by far, where he's reflecting, on his career, reflecting on the support that he's gotten from his family. There was over 20 people from his family came to this tournament.
Wow.
To be there for him, to support him, to see him, and that was cool. Like, I mean, we captured that on camera the first day that they're all there waiting for him, when he came back in off the water. I think it was his second or third day on the water. But so it was a very emotional week. A lot of great stories told, and Kevin is just very thankful in the whole episode. And it's a different side of Kevin in this episode than I think anybody has, or most people have ever gotten to see.
You work with a lot of professional anglers behind the scene who are on the same Strike King Lose team as Kevin. Have you noticed? I mean, is there just the respect level and what those guys talked to you about it being his last year on it through, and kind of what did you notice the interaction with other anglers at the events with Kevin as it came closer? Because I mean, you're on the dock, you're in the boat, you get to see the stuff that no one else does.
So one thing that I thought was really interesting is when you're at a tournament, and you always have fans come up to get their picture taken with the pros. They're like lines of people to get their picture taken with pros and everything. This year, especially this final event, there were pros lining up to get their picture taken with Kevin. Different other competitors wanted to remember this moment. They wanted to remember that this was their final time, competing with Kevin, or to remember just to have that picture taken so that they could look back and remember, all of the times that they got to compete against the greatest. And it was really fun and interesting to see, that. But so many people, so many different competitors came up to him during this final tournament to have a picture with him, just to talk to him, to thank him. I think the sentiment from most of them is that, they're sad to see him go, but also not sad to see him go. Because maybe they'll be able to, get a spot higher in the tournament standings now that he's gone. But everybody, just there's so much respect shown all around.
I've got the Kings of Bass YouTube channel pulled up right here. It is well worth putting this on your TV and streaming all these things. You can actually kind of break it down into the playlists. They have KVD's Last Ride, the Pro Team Journal, the Next Gen, all the different years of that. But heck of a job as far as quality and content wise. Obviously, Pro Team Journal has kind of set the standard for an in industry program. I mean, that's been around as long as I can remember. But Brandon, I mean, you have a hand in all this stuff behind the scenes. So
and I don't want to take anywhere near the credit. We have an incredible team.
Yeah, you have a bunch of guys.
We have an incredible team here at Rather, with starting from the top with Lee, who's our video director. He's the one who's, assigning us to all of our different projects and, giving us feedback. We have all grown so much under Lee's leadership. And then you have Sarita, who's our project manager, but she also helps out a ton on our shoots. She was just there at the last Kings of Bass episode, assisting me with that shoot at Saginaw and at the one and at Red Crest. And we have Ryan, Russell, Mike. There's three of our other video producers who are out there in the field, all the time, whether it's for Pro Team Journal, product videos, different series that we do, like that Next Gen series I was talking about. And then Matt, who is our full-time editor for Pro Team Journals. So Matt is the one who's this season of Pro Team Journals and going forward is the one putting all of those together, and he does an incredible job. So I don't want to take, like I said, I don't want to take all of the credit. We have an incredible team at Rather that we've assembled that everybody does a fantastic job.
All right, so he's got a couple tournaments left, and I know you can't let the cat out of the bag, but are we still going to be seeing Kevin around like Strike King Lose videos, doing stuff? I mean, he's going to have a little bit of free time on his hands. I mean, could we maybe have a little bit more content with Kevin, especially after this last ride series is over?
Absolutely. I would think you're going to see a lot more content with Kevin, and I mean, Kevin's been doing Pro Team Journals since the beginning, for 20 plus years, and you're still going to see Kevin on Pro Team Journals. Like I said, I don't know what the plans are for next year yet. We haven't gotten there yet, but I'm sure that in some way or form we'll be there to cover him at his final, Red Crest and things like that. But yeah, I would think with Kevin having more time available, that's what we're all excited for. I think a lot of people are excited, and not just from Rather, but from other companies that work with Kevin as well, is that there's going to be more time where, like us at Rather will be able to shoot more content with him, do more with him, or be able to not try to time things around the tournament schedule. We can actually time things to go somewhere when the bite is killer, when it's on. And, that's always been a struggle, is trying to schedule shoots around the tournament schedule. And now we'll have that flexibility.
Do you think he can stay retired, Brandon?
I guess time will tell. I think
that's a great answer.
He's very content right now.
Uh-huh.
You know, I would say he's very content right now, at least from what I see. And I don't have any indication from him that, you know, that will change, but time will tell. You know, as a competitor, like, you get that drive, and you know, we'll just end up having to see. But
all right, I want to get to the second half of the show. I see Mark and Tom there, but I would like to invite you back on BTL when things slow down in the winter. You are one of the nation's foremost and premier salmon, Great Lakes salmon guys. Like, that is your like passion, is catching giant. Is it salmon and trout or just salmon?
I'd be salmon and trout. Yeah.
Okay, salmon and trout. We were at a media event up in Michigan, and I sat next to you at dinner, and I felt bad afterwards because all I did was just barrage you with salmon and trout. I was like, that guy probably gets tired of answering the same dang questions over and over from newbies like me. But I've been up to Alaska a couple times. We actually caught, we were up there for that, we went and caught a king out of that little river thing, which was, I mean, a trash fish, but dude, it's like big and pretty, and I don't care. It's up in my bathroom, a big 8x10 of it. But that's like one of my passions, and I would love to get you on to talk about that in the fall and winter time.
Absolutely, man.
It's going right now, right?
It's going down right now. Like, I'm going to send you a picture later this week. I'm going to sneak out after work and go catch a big one and send you a picture, because it's happening right now. It's just starting. You know, the fish are just starting to migrate and get ready to run up the rivers and everything. They're kind of staging out in front of the pier heads, but yeah, it's about to go down. It's happening, and we'll have it for probably about a good month and a half here, you know, before it really dies down. But yeah,
all right, follow all your adventures on Instagram. Brandon. Okay, this one beats ever. It's Owczarzak, but it's spelled Brandon Owczarzak.
That's correct. Yeah, it's confusing.
You got
Polish
all
last
sorts
name.
of.
It's going to be hard for anybody to spell. But
I think you call some of them chromers. You got all sorts of photos of chromers up there.
Chromers, yeah, big fish. Yeah, exactly.
Brandon, much appreciated. Congratulations on a great work and doing justice to the greatest who has ever done it.
Yeah, and I just want to throw one more thing out there real quick, Matt, if you don't mind.
Yep.
I just want to thank all of the fans that have followed Kings of Bass. You know, like we started this series 2 years ago. We're in our third year. This is the fourth year. The first year we had a contractor, Tyler Anderson, before our time, that produced that first series. So this is the fourth series of Kings of Bass, and every event that we go to, so many people come up and compliment us, or whenever we go to, you know, Red Crest or the Classic. I mean, everybody just loves the content. And if it wasn't for the fans, you know, that watch it, and that just the fans of the sport in general that consume content, you know, we wouldn't be able to do this stuff. And it's, you know, this has been one of my like life's passion projects, is being able to go and do this final series with Kevin, or produce this series. So just want to throw that thank you out there to all the fans that consume and watch our content.
Thanks, Brandon. Greatly appreciated.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me.
All right. Brandon Owczarzak, a little bit behind the scenes look there at the Kings of Bass, the last ride with KVD. We're going to take our first break of the show. And when we come back, Mark Copley and Tom Brewbaker. Mark's been around longer than Tom, so we're going to he's known Kevin for, dare I say, decades, I think Tom's been around a while too, but we'll talk to those two when we come back. I'm really interested in, you know, Kevin has been able to move product as a professional angler based on tournament performance. And he's one of the few guys where if you put his name on it, it sells. And he uses what has his initials on it. And there's some really cool stories and some really cool behind the scenes things there. So we'll be back BTL on a Monday, August 14th, right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top on all, Strike King.
So I'm a big guy, you know, a lunker, a two sandwich eating kind of man. And on behalf of all of those bigger, I gotta say it once and for all, it's bad enough that the fish look smaller in our hands. The last thing we should have to worry about is getting quality outdoor clothing that fits. Avco, any fish, any water.
Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at shorelineboatandrv.com. Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa. All right, welcome back, BTL on a Monday. Let's get to a couple other guys who know KVD incredibly well behind the scenes, and I've also seen the impact that he has in stores across the nation. Let's bring Mark in. Mark Copley, thank you for joining me. You're at this, is it the Rather Outdoors headquarters here? It's the Carolinas, right?
Correct. We are in Columbia, South Carolina, and thank you, Matt. I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's the second time. So the first time we went around, they were digging all around the house, and it was the week that I got through half of the shows, and then I had like 19 minutes, and then it would go down and reset. So we should be good to go this time around, Mark.
I'm ready to go. I was ready to go that time.
I know. And then let's bring in Tom Brewbaker also. Are you guys like just next door to each other?
Literally,
yeah. I could knock on his wall and he could hear me. What's up, Mark?
What's up, Tom?
I don't know if you could hear that echo. Now you got your headphones in.
All right. So Mark, manager of trade shows and media relations, but you've been with the brand Strike King for how many years?
I started in 2007. I actually came in as what Brandon is, as a video producer. Was hired to produce Pro Team Journal, and we did several other shows for other companies. But I came in as a video producer, and that's really how I got to know Kevin, was being on the road with him. And
you came in right, and I mentioned it with Brandon, right at the peak of KVD domination. I mean, he's been dominant the whole time, but I think that 07, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I mean, guys got on the water and knew they were fishing for second place in some tournaments. And I don't think I appreciated covering those tournaments at a time where guys were like, yeah, I'm shooting for second. You never hear that anymore.
That's true. And it's funny that you say that. So when after the 2010 and 2011 Classic that Kevin won, we were at a point where we just expect it's funny how you get to that point. We expected him to win. We wanted 3 in a row. We were just he was so dominant, and not that he's not dominant now, but I think other people are catching up, not necessarily to what he did throughout his career, but the competition out there is pretty tough. So, but yeah, that's. I came in on the early years, and it was a lot of fun.
And then Tom, you're the senior brand marketing manager. So you come in, and when did you sign on with Strike King Lose?
I think it was 2 years ago this month. So yeah.
So you come in already with this juggernaut, with the initials, with KVD established as the brand marketing manager. What is it like to come into a job and have someone who is so influential kind of at your fingertips in the industry with the product that you're trying to promote and sell and market?
Well, it's great to have him obviously as an asset and a resource, but it's also a lot of pressure because these brands are his baby, and his initials are literally on the baits, and that shows not only the power of his brand, but the level of involvement that he has with the creation of all of these. So it's a lot of pressure I would say. But I first met Kevin actually as a college angler fishing the Bassmaster College Classic. And then I got to work with him over at Major League Fishing, and he's it's always, I mean, I still fanboy a little bit around him, but he's always treated me with compassion, you know, probably more than he should, and I've always respected that about him. Is he treats everybody with just a level of respect. So that's kind of, even though I haven't, you know, worked with him very long, you know, just from knowing him as a fan and as an angler, it's been cool to get to know him.
So how does Strike King decide as a brand what gets the initials? Because you go into Bass Pro Shops, you go in any tackle store, you see the Strike King branding, you see the KVD initials, you see it on his reels. Is that a deal where you have something and then Kevin tests it out, or is he still very influential in every single bait, and in order to get his initials, it's got to pass Kevin's test?
Well, they all have to pass Kevin's test for sure, but it does differ in terms of if he's bringing an idea or a concept to our product development team, or they're just consulting with him as they develop a concept that's come from somewhere else. But he's the first one, or within the first 5 people that's going to be getting samples of anything, and he's going to have direct involvement with all of it. But, you know, there's certain things that he's going to have more influence on than others.
Mark, I could imagine he's a pain in the butt to probably work with in product development, because I mean, I've been at media events where he's looking at stuff, and dude, the guy is a stickler when it comes to action. Like, I'm thinking of like the KVD jerk baits, and you know, you come out with all the jerk baits. Like, I would imagine that would have to be hard to get something to where he goes, "Yep, let's go with it."
It's funny. It's you know, in the early years, it's one of those. It's like we would not bring it out until Kevin said it's good to go. And it's Matt, I'm sure you remember Phil Marks,
yep,
who was our over product design and development in the early years. And and Phil and Kevin worked really, really long hours perfecting baits. But it's one of those things that if it wasn't right, we were not going to bring it out. And you know, if you go back and look, and it seems like every Strike King bait has Kevin's initials on it. I mean, it doesn't, but there are a lot. But I would say that Strike King would not be where it is today without the help of Kevin and the way he goes about building baits. And it's like you said earlier, if his name's on it, people pretty much buy it.
I'm going to run a quick, this is that KVD Elite, and I'm sure this is from the, from Brandon's archive too. Brandon had to do this. Let me pause it here real quick and share the screen with audio. All right, there we go.
I've been so fortunate to have a great career. I've won a lot of titles, won a lot of championships, had a lot of success. I want to win. I mean, that's always the focus. Nothing satisfies other than winning. Got it. God, he was following it. Good one. Look at that. That's a chunk right there.
There we go. What is it like, Mark, running a lot of the trade shows and having him in the booth? I mean, have you ever seen anyone outside of Bill Dance or Roland Martin that can pull people that are so eager to meet someone?
It's really gets almost insane in the booth when he's there. And this is through the years. I can remember times at the classic, one of the classics in Birmingham, and there was a line because Kevin has we're not his only sponsor. Kevin has multiple sponsors that he has,
yep,
requirements to be at. And it's funny. Sherry, who does a fantastic job in managing everything, the business side of their partnership. And it's, but there would be like a line of 200 people that would follow him from booth to booth just to get his autograph. And there was a time this past year at the Classic, we had created the ultimate hectic scenario in the fact that we had Bill Dance in the booth, we had Kevin in the booth, and we had Noah Pescatelli right next door from Kicking Their Bass in the mop booth. And there was literally 2,000 to 3,000 people surrounding our booth trying to get in to get autographs from those guys.
Wow. Oh, Tom, that's a dream scenario for somebody who's in your position, because you have all these guys that are incredibly marketable.
Yeah. Well, and in that scenario, there were some people saying, well, why'd you book these guys at the exact same time? And it was to create this thunderstorm, awesome, event at the expo where everybody was at our booth. And it was a madhouse, though. It was like shoulder to shoulder trying to squeeze through and get everywhere. But it was awesome. But to your point, yeah, it's very, very beneficial to be able to call up one of, 30 to 40 different people that all have a very influential background in this sport. And it does make my job easier.
I'd like to get both of your takes on this. No offense, Tom, but Mark was here, and no offense to you, Mark, but you were here before the social media. I mean, you came in before that craze, Tom. You kind of came
before
in
cameras. Mark, actually.
but you mentioned Noah from Kicking Their Bass TV. You guys as a brand also do a lot with social media influencers, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, that type. There's been a discussion, at least on BTL and in the fishing industry, that as YouTube becomes more easily digestible and you can reach these guys and talk to them, the tournament wins and the tournament success, those guys are not as valuable now because you're seeing how much product is being pushed by, I'll just say, YouTubers. But you also see what Kevin has done strictly through tournaments and what some of your other brand guys have done through tournament wins. I don't know if there's a right or a wrong answer to this question. I'll start with you, Mark. How have you seen that shift? And was it an anomaly with Kevin being able to sell so many baits from tournament results? You see what I'm trying to ask there? I'm trying to say, because he seems to be one of the guys that you win a tournament on it, stuff sells out. And Kevin was one of those few guys that still is like that.
Yeah. And I'll go back to, it's kind of funny. He was on backstage getting ready to go on stage for the 2010 win in Birmingham at Lay Lake. And that was when he won on a red-eyed shad. And he called Charles Herndon, who ran the plant for us there in Collierville. And he was backstage, and he called Charles and said, "You might want to fire up the red-eye plant," just letting him know that we were getting ready to have a win. But that was a time back then when and I think one of the things that's changed that I've noticed at tournaments, you don't see guys winning on one particular bait anymore. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different things that, fishing, the techniques have changed. Not necessarily changed, but the fish have changed towards the techniques with forward-facing sonar and all of that. But you just don't see someone throwing one particular bait. But in Kevin's instances, the first MLF win that he had I believe it was for a Summit Cup, when he caught, I forgot, it was like a record number of fish, but he literally caught every single one of them on his jerk bait. And the jerk bait was fairly new at that point. When he won in New Orleans, he did throw a spinner bait early in that, but he literally beat everybody's head in with that 1.5. At one point, he was so dialed in, I know he offered 1.5s to the other anglers and said, here's what I'm catching them on. Come beat me. And back then there wasn't the social media presence. 2010, 2011 was the early stages of really, at the time it was Facebook. Mm-hmm. And, you've seen with Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and good Lord, there's so many of them out there, but the ones that are the majority now, it's there's so much information out there, and it's hard for people to keep up sometimes. But yeah, it's social media is definitely a big part of what we started to do then. 2011 was actually when I moved into out of video and then the marketing manager for Strike King, and then so that was the early years of when we were building it to now when and our guys. I mean, I heard Brandon earlier. The team that we have here is incredible as far as talent for those that run social media, for our video production crew. Tom's an incredible leader in what he does, and I'm not just saying that to blow smoke.
It's because he's next door.
It's because he's next door, and he might fire me. No, but we have a really good team here, and to have Kevin on that team is pretty incredible.
Tom, Kevin seems to embrace the social media. You seem to evolve with it. He does the podcast stuff. You see him on the social media. You see him doing this stuff on YouTube. I mean,
I think Kevin, and this isn't an age comparison, but I like to compare him to Nick Saban because people say, oh, he's going with these big offensive linemen and big running backs and big receivers, and he won't be able to adapt to, the spread offense. And then the next year, he hires Lane Kiffin and he's got, a retooled offense and he's right back there at the top. I think Kevin just naturally embraces change, and that's a big advantage for him, which is why I think you've seen him sustain success for a really long time. And a lot of times he is the catalyst for that change. And, back to what you mentioned about, tournament driving bait sales like it used to. I think Kevin's an anomaly in that the power of his brand. It's like Tiger Woods. Tiger was the same way. Anything with his brand on it, he would sell it regardless of, what the specific media channel was. I just think his brand has so much power, and especially if he's winning something on a new bait. But that's another part of it too, is like, it's so hard to create something truly unique now. And you still see stories like that where, like Fire Crawl, like that was a huge one. Obviously when Bladed Jigs and the Whopper Plopper, like you still have scenarios where like that bait just creates a huge story. But I do think you're seeing people's attention pulled in more directions now. And so you're fighting for that. Like the pie is probably just as big and people still have the same amount of time in their day to consume media. But now you've got, in addition to print media and TV, you have the digital side. You have companies throwing paid advertisements at you all the time. And you're just so distracted that they only get so much of the segment when Bassmaster MLF releases that top 10 baits article. And unless it's some truly compelling story behind it, it's just not going to get the attention that it used to if you've also got YouTube and all these other ways that people can consume media. But tournament wins are still super valuable. I think it's just how you tell the story. You have to be a little bit more creative there now.
Dude, that's a really good point, Tom, because back when KVD was building the brand, he would win a big tournament, he would have the bait on it, and then it would sit on the coffee table once that magazine came out, and that was the only media that was being consumed. There'd be newspaper articles or about it, or even in the early days of the internet, you'd have the article about it. But I mean, that would I can still picture articles and rereading it. And now it's got to be so hard as a marketing manager, when you have a year like Dakota had last year, or you have a young star like a Cole Floyd, or you have something like a Jay Shakurat who breaks 100 pounds, because there's so much churn and so many tournaments going on, and it's on to the next thing, to taking that accomplishment and making it stick, and then translating that, associating it with a brand, and translating that into consumer trust and sales.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where you start with an authentic story, though, is with a tournament win. And somebody like you brought up, Jay Shakurat and Dakota. I mean, those guys, they're new enough to where they haven't had decades of experience promoting and marketing. And so for them, it's all from the heart. There is no, they're not saying that they're fishing with baits that they're not. I mean, they're 100% authentic. And that's another thing that, you notice with Kevin too, is he doesn't, like, he can't get behind something that, if we're like, man, we really need to sell some, 1.5s in bluegill. Like, Kevin's not going to go out there and say, well, I caught him on a 1.5 in bluegill. Like, he's not going to say that unless he did. And there's also, and this is kind of going down a different subject line here, but I know a lot of people say, oh, the pros use different blanks than what we see in the store. It's like Kevin's KVD rod series is the exact same one that you can go find at Bass Pro and Academy and all over the place. I mean, it's they believe in the equipment, and that's another thing about having every product category under the sun between Strike King and Lew's is, if our pros need something, we have it, and if we need to improve it, they're going to let us know that, and we'll come out with a better product. So
that's the other thing you've seen, and this seems to be a trend over the past 5 or 6 years. Rather Outdoors, big company. And there's a couple in the industry like that. And it seems like most of those are kind of going the way of trying to get hard baits, soft baits, line, rod, reels. So when you do have a win, you're maximizing it across all the platforms. How big was it, Mark, to get KVD to come over and do a signature series with Lew's after 2+ decades with Quantum? I mean, he was synonymous with Quantum, and it seemed like a very natural transition to come over to Lew's.
Well, that's one of the things about Kevin. He's been so loyal to the brands that have been behind him. If you think about it, Kevin could have any sponsor he wanted. He's been with Nitro all these years. He's just a loyal guy, but to have an opportunity for him to come over to Lew's and put his stamp of approval on it, and to bring what he brought to Quantum at the time to us, and to what a lot of people don't realize, like especially on rod blanks, these guys have certain ways where they want the taper to bend. There's certain strength they want in the butt of the rod and tip. Not as we say, not all 7-foot medium, heavy, fast are created equal. They're all different in some ways, but to add that legitimacy of have Kevin come over and put his name on it, and it's even kind of cool, and that burgundy red is kind of his color anyway. Mm-hmm. But to see it, what was it, Quantum is now on our Lew's brand. It keeps that consistency level up too, to know that is KVD stuff.
On the instant feedback, Mark is saying he never throws the KVD 1.5 because too many people throw them. Isn't that like a Yogi Berra quote where he says, no one goes there because the place is always too crowded?
I have a theory. When I fish, I'm going to throw what works, what I know works.
Yeah. We'll wrap it up with this. Mark, Tom, give me your best KVD story that you've got.
You want me to go first?
You have one already?
I have a pretty good one. So
all right, let's hear it.
As I told you earlier, when I first came to Strike King, I was a video producer, and we were up on one of Kevin's favorite lakes, St. Clair, and we were filming a Pro Team Journal, and we were over on the Canada side. We were about 40 miles from the ramp, and if you've ever seen Kevin throw a bait, you know that he lets about 6 feet hang off the tip, and then he puts so much into it. Well, I was standing in the boat with the camera up, and he went to sling a spinner bait, and it slapped me right on the left side of my cheek and put a hole in my cheek, and put the hook never went in. It hit sideways where the hook never had a chance, and it just fell down. But the reaction afterwards was what was so funny, because all Kevin could say was, dude, it's bad. He just kept saying, dude, it's bad. I'm like, okay. And at this point, I was numb. I couldn't feel anything. Yeah. And he's like, we got to go. I was like, okay, well, let's go. He goes, well, wait a second. We got to do a close. I said, I thought you said we had to leave. He goes, well, we got to leave, but we got to do it close, Steve. But the cool thing about that is that, we went in, I went to the hospital to get it checked on, and anybody else could have, left and gone on. Kevin stayed there until he knew I was okay. And we had enough for the show. And so he went home, but he called me later that night once again to check on me just to make sure. And that's what I don't think people realize, the humanness of Kevin. They see his intensity and everything, but he's a very caring person and he cares for the people he's around.
Good story. Tom, you're up.
My story is not going to be nearly as cool, but this is for me, personally the coolest moment that I had with Kevin was last year at this national sales meeting that we had out near the Santee Cooper. I don't remember the name of the venue, Mark, but Kevin was out there leading the sales meeting and getting everybody fired up, all the salesmen about the baits and everything. And so we had a few of the new products out back on this porch by this pond. And during one of the breaks, I went out there and was just testing out a few of the new baits. And Kevin comes out there and he's like, oh, man, let's try some of these out. And so then it unfolds into a little like mini competition on who can catch a fish first. But then like I stopped for a second and was like, I'm fishing a pond with Kevin right now. And there's nobody else around. This is just a cool moment for me to be just standing here pond fishing with Kevin. And, he did win the competition. But even in that moment, he was just so dialed into trying to hit a little piece of brush in the pond and trying to break down the pond. And I'm just sitting there like, this is incredible. Just the level of energy and passion that he brings to everything, whether it's pond fishing at a national sales meeting or on the water kicking people's butt. So that's my story.
That's a good story. That's a very good story. I mean, not too many people would say they had a pond tournament with KVD. Yeah, and not too many people could say that they had KVD put a spinnerbait through their head. Those are two very good stories. All right, both you guys, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and Tom touched on something. I think when we all look back and the opportunities that we had, it's hard not to be fanboy because we try to look, but when you get to knowing someone on a personal level, like we have with Kevin, it's really cool. But at some point I will look back and go, man, that was pretty cool. I got to spend the majority of my career hanging out with one of the best ever to play the game.
I'll ask you guys the same question just because I asked Brandon it. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but it's my show. I can ask it if I want it. Tom, will KVD stay retired? Can KVD stay retired? Not will. It's a matter of can he? Personally, inside.
From tournament fishing, we actually had a conversation about this.
Can KVD stay retired from a regular season where the words KVD is back? Like, will that phrase ever be uttered? Now, outside
I'm a dreamer, so yes, I want that to happen. I think I want that to happen. I want to believe that there's a chance that that'll happen. If I was a betting man, I would say no, but the dreamer inside me wants that to happen. So yes, that's a possibility.
Mark?
Well, it's funny when the announcement came out, I texted Kevin just to congratulate him, and his first words back were, well, thanks, I appreciate it. He goes, but you're going to see more of me now than you've ever seen me. So he's not retired, but as far as you said, tournament, I'm like Tom. I dream. I'd love to see him come back, and yet I was pulling so hard for him to win that Saginaw Bay because he would have been the first ever to retire on a win of a regular season, and that would have been pretty cool. So it's. I was back to like the old days. I just expected him to do it because it's what Kevin does.
Can you not see like 2-3 years down the road, you log on to YouTube, Kings of Bass, there's a big video drop announcement. It's just a black screen and Brandon has the perfect music. It's just KVD. And then it just fades to he's back.
He's back.
I mean,
I hope.
I'm just saying. Like I said, I don't know. It's fun to talk about.
Yeah. The guy's too competitive. I just don't understand what he's going to pour that competitive energy
and he's got something up his sleeve. You guys know and can't talk about it probably. KVD has something up his sleeve. There's no way that he just goes, hey, I'm retired from competition. And he's made little comments like he said, you're going to see more. I will be very interested as someone who does a podcast at a show for a living. It's good fodder. It's good material for it. So,
and it gives us hope.
All right. Anything else we need to be on the lookout for the rest of the year? Striking wise, Kings of Bass wise, any of that stuff?
New episode of Kings of Bass coming out Monday. Also, if you're in the Lake Hartwell area, we got a big bass challenge coming up in a few weeks. So make sure you go check that out. Some awesome payouts there. But outside of that, just rocking and rolling, getting ready for 24.
Mark?
Crappie Expo coming up in Birmingham, the home of bass, Lay Lake, Logan Martin.
I would love to go to Crappie Expo. Crappie is my second passion outside of salmon. Like any other species other than bass is what my passion is, and I'm big into the crappie, and I would love to go to a Crappie Expo.
You need to come down. It's just Birmingham. It's not that far from.
Dude, I was 34 days on the road, and then I just was gone for another 4 days, and then I got the 2 opens coming up. I'm home for like 11 days, and it's the longest I've been home since like March.
Well, rumor has it you're a little sore maybe from this last trip.
Oh my gosh, the surfing killed. I had no idea. There's muscles that you use surfing, like, and I'm sore from sitting on the board and paddling out. Like, I didn't even get up. I wiped out twice and rode 3 waves in. It's bad, like very bad, like very embarrassingly bad. Like trying to do this is not fun. Like just lifting the arms like all down the sides. You guys should try it.
And Casey made it look easy, didn't he?
Well, yeah, Casey Shed, AFCO Freshwater. You know, he's from out there in California. He had his 5-year-old on the board out there, and he's on the front. Casey's standing up on the board while his 5-year-old surfs in. But I could see the draw. Like I feel in this industry, and you guys probably are both agree, Mark, Tom, you guys are at expos, you're at meetings, you're doing deals, you're working with pro staff, and it's hard. It's easy to forget that the moments in this sport that are what you love are often when the least people are around, and you have those moments where it's kind of serenity and you're in nature by yourself or with someone, and you're like, man, this is what it's all about. And I'm so fortunate to be in an industry that allows me to do this for a living and to put up with all of the office stuff. Am I wrong with that?
You're not wrong at all.
Right.
I think we all live for the jerk. It's when you get out there and Tom just got back from Venice, and it's like, I love to redfish. It's one of my passions. And man, when you set the hook on a big one and then you start hearing drag and line peel off, that's why I choose this industry to work in, and I've been blessed to work in it since 2007.
Tom, did you catch those redfish on a cork? It looked like I saw on Instagram, like a cork and shrimp or something.
Can I do a shameless product plug?
Yeah, you do whatever you want.
Know.
Here, look, I'll even put you big screen for it.
Check this thing out. So this is the tidal shrimp. And I'm not a big saltwater inshore guy.
Oh, can you open that up? Because I'm very interested in that. That looks.
Yeah.
This was not planned, folks.
Yeah, and I had to dig through a box to find it.
I just saw it on Instagram. He had some weird looking. Is it a bobber or? Okay.
Well, so there's a cork that goes with it, and for the second time, I won't grab it. But it's we have a plopping cork and a popping cork, and a plopping cork's got a little blade on the back of it. And when you're cork fishing, it's not like
Do you have a plopping cork there?
Yeah, I can grab them.
Yeah, grab a plopping cork because I'm seeing this coming for the float and fly.
Oh yeah.
It's a weird.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a weird looking. Hey, Scott Martin was using a bobber on Lay Lake this year in the Elite Series.
Hey, Mark, do you have one? I took mine to the house.
Oh, I did not expect to end this show searching for a plopping cork. I'm not gonna lie to you there.
Here's the popping cork. I think Mark's got one in there, but this is obviously it's got little holes in there just for increased commotion on the surface. But yeah, you put this little shrimp behind it, and as you jerk it, it actually causes the shrimp to flee like this. It looks like an actual fleeing shrimp, and they were smoking it. I mean,
what, you had your redfish guys design that stuff for Strike King, and it came out, and you went down and tested it out.
Yep, and it was fire. And now I want to go back and redfish a lot more because I mean, it's literally the second they eat it, they just run off with it, and it's like fishing for for bass, if bass could like bench press 500 pounds. I mean, they're so stout. We were flipping spinner baits in their face, and then they would take it and run off, or we use this popping cork more in the open water, and they would just smoke it. So yeah, this cork's better just for general purposes. The plopping cork is this with a little blade on the back. That's better for calmer water scenarios, but not a big inshore guy until now, and it just so happened we were able to catch them all in Strike King products, and it was really fun.
Had you ever been to Venice before to fish?
Never in my life.
This reminds me, I went in 2018, I think, with Gerald Spohr, and we took his bass cat at the time across like the oyster beds. We put in and ran all the way out to Venice, and he said, bring your swim bait rod with 20-pound test on it. So I had a 710 heavy action swim bait rod, and he ties on a black and chartreuse 3.5. And I'm like, okay. And I mean, I've got a big reel on this, and I'm like, could have brought it. He's like, yeah, you don't want to crank it. You don't want to crank and rod, dude. And we start cranking, and the big bull reds have those 3.5 so far back in. I mean, it's everything you can do to get the pliers in their mouth and out. And you're just crank, do. And then it goes completely slack, and you're like, what the heck? And then it just spools you. It's so addictive on those big bull reds. It's the only time I've ever done it.
Oh,
we have a saying in Venice. It's easier to catch a giant there than it is to catch an eater.
Yeah, you've probably been a bunch over the years, haven't you, Mark?
I have been. I've been blessed to go down there. Mike Burnett's like a brother to me, and I go down there. I've been down there many, many times, and it's my biggest is like 36.5 pounds.
Golly. Do you like doing that or the speckled thing? Because we caught a bunch of speckled trout too, and that was fun. That was almost like spotted bass fishing with the little popping corks.
I don't know what's wrong with me, but I love to get punished, so I like to go for the big stuff.
Did you guys catch any? Have you ever done the sheep's head? Because I got into the sheep's head with the shrimp down there, and those things are Western. They will murder you when you get them in.
Yeah, sheep's head. They're definitely a live bait. It's hard to get them to eat artificials, but boy, that's the great thing about what comes out of the ocean. 99% of what comes out of the ocean tastes fantastic.
Yeah, we had black drum, sheep's head, speckled trout, and redfish.
And there's triple tail, there's red snapper. I mean, there's just so much you can do down there.
Yeah, you'll probably be back pretty soon, sooner rather than later, right, Tom?
Yeah. Next time Mark slides on down to Venice, I might have to see if I can get the invite, because that blew my mind. And Fournette and his wife, they've got a great setup down there, and they'll take you out on the water, and then you come back and cook everything. I mean, Lori is one of the best cooks that I've ever met, and she just it was amazing. Within like an hour of getting back, we had this just delicious black and red fish or shrimp or whatever, and they just take really good care of you. And
is it a commercial deal? Like if you're listening to this and want to go down and do it, you can go out with them?
Absolutely.
What's the website?
It's Redfish Lodge of Louisiana. You can look up Mike on Facebook, Mike Burnett. But yes, that's Mike's. And their two sons, Stephen and Michael, are also guys down there. But Tom's right. Laurie is a fantastic chef, and just like every night, it's something different, and you just shake your head like, I can't leave.
Is that it right there?
That's it. That is it.
Their sons are ex-college anglers too, southeastern Louisiana. Yep.
If you're looking for a cool non-bass trip, and like I said, I've never been out with the guide there, but it's a place you probably need to go out with a guide. You can jack some stuff up there if you're don't know where you're going.
Yeah, or get lost forever.
Yeah, or get lost forever, and you're running in saltwater.
I highly recommend
brackish,
going with a guide.
And it sounds like this might be a good one. So
it is, and it's
you can book.
If you ever talk to Zona or Dance or Shaw or any of those guys, it's their favorite place to go to. Matt, we may have to start a new show, RTL, Redfish Talk Live.
I see. Yeah, I don't. There's a bunch of guys. I know how. So redfish to me, I'll just throw this out there. I love the red fishing and the tournaments. I haven't caught a bunch, but the ones that I have. But to me, that 2 under 28 inches is maddening. Like how does that not boil down to such an extra element of luck as to whether you have a 28 and a quarter or a 27 and 7/8? So, and then you only have 2 of them. So it's like, you've done this more than me. Is there a way that these guys target 27 and 3/4 instead of 28 and a halves?
Well, what they do, and they go look for the air. It's, most of these areas, all of these guys have been to for, years and years and years. And you just kind of have to weed through. But, I know they target a lot of jetties, but they also try to get in sight casting here. Because if you can sight cast and you can see, you actually have a better idea of what you're throwing at. I mean, it's the differences, between a under 28 and one that's massively over 28 is easy to tell when you can see them. So, but yeah, that's Mike and I have these discussions all the time about, wouldn't you just like to go up on stage with a 60-pounder?
It's 2 giant suckers in a wheelbarrow.
That's
right. Do you remember how big that FLW Redfish series was? I remember back in the day. I mean, they had like a kingfish series, a walleye series, and they had a redfish series. And I would love watching the redfish series because of how they had the walleye one was cool, but it was like, there's one, and it was just a slow reel in and then a long net. But the redfish series, I just always remember those guys, those fish just ripping across flats and stuff, and you never knew if you were going to land them. And they were the first ones to use like the straight braided line with the spinning rod. So you got guys just torquing on these freaking giant redfish out there. I loved watching that.
It's so cool because 90% of what they fish with that's artificials is the same thing that we fish for bass with. It's you were talking about 3-point. They love an 8.0 down there because it's a big, bulky.
It wasn't out when I don't think when I went with Spore.
And it's just like, and Mike used to throw some of our old walleye baits that we did, the banana shad. It's just because, we did a show one time down there when I was still filming, throwing a 10XD in 2 feet of water and making it dig in the sand because it looked like a crab going across the water.
Really?
And got an insane show. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's insane, and it's the first time you get a big one on. And Tom will attest to this. It's a game changer for you because you've never had that experience. Yeah.
Did you get the mark on your side, Tom, from digging the rod? Did you get the bruise on your side?
Oh yeah, yeah. There was one point where I was so tired of reeling in drum too, or black drum, that I was just handing it to the camera guy like, dude, will you please take this? Like, if I'm going to expend energy, I want it to be on a redfish that's going to run. Because then your black drum, as opposed to red drum, the black drum had this like tail thing. They'll just whip the tail 3 times and then just dig. And redfish will just take off. And then you're just trying not to get spooled the whole time. But that's the cool thing, is that it's on spinning tackle. I was like, are we going to be able to horse these things in with this? And that's the cool thing. You're not out there with a big offshore rod setup. You're in there using bass tackle essentially. Yeah. Saltwater is also like one of those places where, like when you just start getting into like freshwater fishing and you're like, I'm going to try this off the wall thing that nobody's ever doing. You're like, this is the perfect color. And it's really just because you don't necessarily know what you're doing. So like, it's probably not going to work. But with saltwater, I feel like what Mark said about the crab and the 10XD, it's like you can try some stuff like that and it pay off. And then you just discovered a pattern that no one else is doing, and you can just crush all kinds of species. It's more of a playground, I guess.
Yeah. Where is this going to be available for the viewing public pleasure in a near
the product?
You said the show. Did you do a show or did you just do a product?
So that's an episode of The Cast, which is if anybody watches Heartland Bowhunter, it's the same production company, and they've got a few different episodes with our guys this year. I tagged along selfishly so I could go down to Venice.
Yeah, that's understandable.
It'll be out in a couple of weeks. Check out The Cast on YouTube. It's really good stuff.
My first Venice experience was when the Classic was there. The one that I think it was the one that KVD won. Remember they all got the radar on their boats, and then they realized that half of them had the radar that caused like immediate brain cancer. And it was bad. Like they had this radar, and there was the radar that was like supposed to go on like the top of the boats, right, Mark? If I'm remembering this correctly.
Absolutely.
And they were putting this stuff like on their back deck within like 6 inches of their body. And everyone was like,
yeah,
yeah,
because
that's
they were making a run down the river because they were putting in New Orleans. And what a lot of people don't realize, you think Venice is just down the road.
No.
But if you could, fly straight there, it'd take you about 50 minutes, but it's an hour and a half once you cross over the bridge right there in New Orleans over the Mississippi River to get down there. And it's the same way by water. But they put these because they had so much fog and there were so many boats going up and down. They were trying so they could see boats as they were going. And then Kevin, let's bring it right back to what this show is about. He just stays, 2 or 3 miles from the ramp, goes into Lake Catawatchie and hits it at the perfect time because the fish were coming to him, and all those giants were coming in there to spawn. And it was, that's that area down there. It is. I often joke with Mike, he should do a TV show because you could do something different every day, every show.
Fantastic ending, gentlemen. Thank you for jumping on BTL this morning. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you having us on.
Tom, Mark, have a good one.
See ya.
All right. There we go. We're back. All right. Big shout out to all three of those: Brandon Owczarzak, Mark Copley, Tom Brewbaker. We're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, a special evening edition of BTL tonight. It's like a dinner edition. It's at 6 p.m. And one of my favorite guests and one of the favorite guests that we've had on BTL, I think this will be his third or fourth appearance, and he's recently back from Alaska, and he's recently back from Mexico. And when I just got home from California, there was a half-past first cast Richardson 112 leather patch hat waiting for me. None other than outdoor writer extraordinaire Pete Robbins, 6 p.m. Central Time tonight, Monday, August 14th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Pete Robbins will be on the show. Other than that, I think that's about all we got for today. Try to get all my ducks in a row here. Yeah. Pete Robbins, National Championship, and the KVD last ride. All right, folks. We'll talk to everybody tonight. Pete Robbins. Big shout out to the folks over at Rather Outdoors and Strike King. We'll talk to you later. See ya.